All right, and let me share screen. The whole desktop, I believe, is what I want to do. Perfect. All right. So let me minimize you guys. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to create templates in your zip forms. And what that means is right now, without a template, what you're basically going to be stuck doing is if you meet a buyer and the buyer wants to work with you, you're going to need to open up a transaction in zip forms, and you're going to need to try your best to remember every single form that they are going to need to sign. And don't get me wrong, you will get to a point where you can rattle those off the top of your head. But until that, you're going to want to have templates. And even more so, when you get really busy, you're not going to want to manually add the forms. You're going to want to have a template. So we're going to go ahead and log into our Recenter Hub. And hopefully none of this is new to you guys. We're going to go to car forms. Okay. You're going to have to jump through all these 50 million clicks to get into the right space. And again, this is going to be recorded, so if any of this moves too fast for you, feel free to ask a question, but know that you're going to be able to access this recording another time, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before I go into a new and I choose if it's a listing, which by the way, if it is a buyer or a tenant, I'm sorry, no, if it's a buyer, you're going to do new purchase offer. If it is a tenant, you're going to do new lease. If it is a seller, you're going to do new listing. And if it's a landlord, you're going to do new lease listing. And then quick e-sign is for just one-off forms. And you would choose one of these two, but we're not going to do that yet. Okay, because let me show you what mine looks like. If I go to new listing and I'll put in 123 Banana Street, and then I say it's a residential, you may not have this option where you can hit select template, and I can say I want to choose a listing template or a RPA template, aka listing buyer. Okay, seller buyer. This will fill in the RLA, the listing agreement. This will fill in the RPA, which is the purchase agreement. Okay, so before we do that, we're going to exit out of here and we're going to go up here to templates. And we're going to hit forms and checklists. And we're going to say new because we're going to create a new template. Okay, and I'm really simple minded. I have to keep it hyper simple. Right now, we're ignoring everything except for listing. I'm going to go to a new listing. This is now you have to remember where you are. You're in template mode, so you're not creating a listing for 123 Banana Street. This is a general generic template. So we're going to call this. Let me see. What do I have listed? I have a residential listing, and I haven't have the date. I'm going to put listing. I'll put residential listing, and I will put the date at least by the month. So this will be 3/25. The reason I put a date is because eventually a new form will come out and you'll want to be able to see which is old and erase the old one. And I'm going to say this is residential because I'm a residential agent. I'm not really going to do much else. Auto apply. Do not automatically apply this template to new transactions. Automatically apply this template to new listing transactions. Automatically apply this template to all new transactions. Now, I don't want this to be automatically applied to all new transactions because what if it's a buyer? Okay, so I'm going to hit automatically apply this template to listing residential new transactions. Okay, and by the way, you don't even have to. So let's just pretend we don't. Do not automatically apply this. I'm going to have to select it every time. Okay, and I'm going to hit save. Now I'm in my residential, you can see it up here, residential listing 325, and I'm going to start putting in forms that I'm going to need. So I'm going to immediately put the cover sheet. I've talked to some of you about how important that is. The cover sheet is one of the, if not the most important form because you're going to fill it out one time and it will auto-fill to all the other forms. Now, what else will we need to put in here? Well, we'll definitely have to put in a listing agreement. Okay. What else? Unmute yourself if you want to help out here, but what other forms would we need when it's a new listing?
Well, when it's a new listing, oh, not okay. I was gonna say RPA, but a BRBC.
So the BRBC is for the buyer.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
doing a listing. That's okay.
Okay, got it. Is there something similar for a seller too, like a seller agreement?
No, that would be the listing agreement. It would fall
Okay.
under that preview. Yep. So we
And
know that with the listing agreement, there was the MLSA. That's a part of it, right? Because it talks about the importance of the MLS and it's a requirement. So this is why it's important to do this up front because you will probably forget to put that one in. What else does a seller need to do? They may have to disclose some things.
Disclosures.
Yeah, so which disclosures would those be?
Hmm.
I'm thinking of two specific ones.
NHD.
No, that's going to be ordered by your natural hazards
Okay, never mind.
vendor. So there is a form that the seller has to identify everything that is being transferred.
Hmm.
It is the transfer disclosure statement, TDS. There it is. Real estate transfer disclosure statement. And then there's a questionnaire that sellers have to fill out. What's that one called? SPQ, Seller Property Questionnaire. Okay. And look, guys, this is why we're doing this template because at first you're not going to remember all these. That's why it's important that you watch this recording later, build out your templates when it's a listing. So we have, let's X out of here and let's take a look. So I just got a listing or I'm going on a listing appointment. I need the listing agreement. I need the MLSA form. I need the TDS and I need the SPQ. What else might we need? Now, remember, this doesn't mean you're going to use it, but as soon as you open up a new possible transaction, these will all become options. So, what if the property is owned in a trust? Let's type that in. Oh, there's a trust advisory. I'm going to plug that one in. Now, there are other forms we could put in here, but I don't recommend you need it yet. So, for example, you will need a um, what was I was about to say something. You will need a seller counter, but I wouldn't put that in yet because you don't know if you're going to need a seller counter or a seller multiple counter. You could have to put in a notice to perform, but you may not. You may need to do a demand to close escrow. You also may not. You may need to put in a cancellation of listing. So let's put that in just in case. Cancellation of listing. I'm going to put that one in just in case. Okay. What else do we have?
How about the agent? When we check the like the property, if it has anything. What was the
Yes,
name? I
it's
forgot.
an agent visual
Visual inspection.
inspection.
Yes.
That is also known as the AVID form. Excellent. Good, 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 good. Now, does this mean these are all the forms you're going to need? Absolutely not. That is not what it means. But this is going to make it so when somebody calls you to come over to their house, you don't have to scramble or call me or even come back and watch this video if you just do this one time correctly. And by the way, if we forget a form, which we may have forgotten a form, you can always go back and add a form in to your template. Okay. Now, because I'm just very I was going to say, because I'm very, I want things to be organized, I'm going to organize these. And I know for a fact I will need the Avid form. So I'm going to put that up here. Maybe I'll put it up after here. So now when I look at my forms, it's going to say, okay, fill out your cover sheet. That's going to auto populate to the listing agreement and the MLSA form. And you're going to need to print out your Avid. You're going to need to print out your TDS, your SPQ. And if they're in a trust, you'll need to have your trust advisory. And then hopefully you don't need a cancellation of listing. Okay. So let's say we're done organizing this and it's saved. Cool. I love it. I'm happy with it. Um, how do we feel about this? Are we okay with this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to the list. I think it saved it. It looked like it did. Uh, do, 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 do. Okay, so we're going to go back to the list. Oh, there it is. Okay. So we're going to create a new one because, again, this is a class where I want you to actually apply these things. So we just did a listing. So now let's pretend that this is a buyer. That's going to happen a lot for you guys, especially newer in real estate. So we're going to say residential purchase 325. This is going to be residential. Do not apply this automatically. I will decide which template's going to be used. Just like the way I showed you, when I chose a new transaction, it said, okay, what's the name of the address, blah, blah, blah. And then it said, which template would you like to add? I made it very simple. Residential purchase. Got it. And I'm going to hit save. So it's residential, it's personal, that's fine. Do not automatically apply this template to new transactions. I'm going to hit save. And now let's do the same thing. We're going to build out some new forms. So what do we do first? What's the most important form for any transaction, in my opinion?
Cover sheet,
Cover
BRBC.
sheet, cover sheet, cover sheet, cover sheet, even more than the BRBC, because if you do the cover sheet correctly, it will automatically plop in all their information on the BRBC. Let's put that one, BRBC. Boom. And then there's another one that if they don't want to sign a BRBC, what is another shorter term buyer representation agreement?
I don't know this one. I don't think I've done it.
It is the property showing and representation agreement. And it's okay if you haven't used it, because in a perfect world, you don't need it. This is just when they only want to see a few homes with you and or they want to basically test you out as an agent, then you say, okay, no worries. We're not going to do a 3-month agreement. I understand that's a big step. How about we do a shorter term agreement known as a property showing representation agreement, a PSRA? Okay, so we have the representation covered. What else do we need? You guys should get this
The
one.
RPA.
There we go. RPA. Okay, what else?
Do you need an agent visual inspection disclosure for this one as well?
You sure do. Good job. And if you ever need to jog your memory, let's type in buyer. Let's see what else there is. Buyer contingency removal. You will need that, but again, when you need it is going to be fluid. You're not going to need it up front. You could add it if you wanted. So BR, but again, you're probably going to need more than one buyer contingency removal. Okay. Um, so I don't know if I would add that one. Let's see, buyer. We're not doing a buyer non-agency agreement. Let's see, buyer early occupation addendum. That's not really one we do. Buyer identification of properties and preferences. We actually advise people not to use that. Let's see, buyer non-agency agreement. We don't want that one. What else do we have? A cancellation of buyer representation. Unfortunately, we may need that one. So we're going to put that one in, although we hope it never comes up. That's in case they choose to cancel with you. Anytime they just tell you through a writing, so an email, a text message, that agreement is canceled. You would use the cancellation of buyer representation to formalize it, to make your file more clean. Okay. Some people like a buyer investigation advisory. It's just telling the buyer, hey, you're going to do an investigation. This is just something I want you to sign so that you understand it. Okay. There's nothing wrong with using that one. It's not required, but it shows your client sometimes that you're, showing extra protection for them. Let's see. Modification of terms. Is there a chance that the BRBC needs to be adjusted, extended? Maybe they want you to lower your compensation just for one property. So you would use an MTBR. Now, I'm going to add that one only because we're seeing it happen a lot where the BRBC is signed for 3%. The buyer, or sorry, the seller says they're only going to pay 2.5%. So the buyer needs to, sorry, the buyer's agent needs to modify the buyer agreement or hold their buyer to that extra 0.5%. It's just nice to have that so you don't have to go searching for it. Okay. Let's see. Anything else? I think we're good. So let's reorder these. So let's organize these. So cover sheet, as always, going to be first. BRBC, that's always going to be next. PSRA, in case they don't want to commit to a long term, no problem. And then we are going to go into, okay, you found a property that you liked. We're going to write an offer on it. So that's where the RPA is going to come in. I would put the buyer investigation advisory with that. Okay. So they're going to be signing these two things. They've already signed these two things. And then as soon as they sign these guys, because they're going to start opening escrow, then you would get the Avid printed out and you would take care of that. Hopefully, they are going to start removing contingencies. This is more just to jog your memory in case you need to be reminded of these things. So the buyer contingency removal, cancellation of buyer representation in case things don't work out. And then if you need an extension on your BRBC or you need to adjust your compensation on your BRBC, we have this here just to remind you of your options. Okay. And that would be it, honestly. So let's go done organizing. I believed it already saved it. Perfect. Let's go back to our list. So now we have residential purchase 325, residential listing 325, and you can see my old ones from a year ago. And let's actually take a look. Let's see what is in these. So I have RPA, BRBC, an Avid. VP. We're gonna need that one. So VP. See, I'm glad we did this. VP is a form that you do. It's also known as a final walkthrough. So your client, your buyer, is going to be doing within 5 days of escrow being closed. They're going to do a final walkthrough and they're going to fill out a VP, verification of property. This is just to safeguard anybody from, hey, they blew out a wall during escrow. We didn't agree to that. So your job and your buyer's job is to make sure that the property was found in the agreed upon condition. Okay, so let's go back to the templates. Residential purchase, and we're going to add VP, verification of property. Boop. And that would come towards the end of the escrow anyways, so I'm okay keeping it towards the back. It would probably be right over here, verification of property. Okay, so done organizing, that is saved. Let's go back at my previous one. And let's see what else we got. So we did BCA. This form doesn't exist anymore. So that's how you know this is an old template. PSRA had that one. Buyer's Investigation Advisory had that one. Contingency for sale of buyer's property. So this is in the event. Can I open a form? Will it let me? Perfect. So let's take a look at the RPA. So when your buyer is writing an offer, there is a chance that they have to sell their home in order to purchase this one. I wish they made this box bigger, but there's a line L9 that says sale of buyer's property. Sale of buyer's property is not a contingency unless checked here, meaning when you check this off, you're saying that the sale of the buyer's property is contingent upon them selling their own house. When you click this button, the COP form will auto-populate. So you don't actually need to add that to your template. Do you want to save changes? No. So, call me a little bit wiser than back in the day, but I would not need this anymore. Okay. So I would not have added contingency of sale of property. That's called a COP form. I don't need that in the template because as soon as I check it in the RPA, zip forms will automatically put that in my signature stack. Okay, so I'm happy with this. Let's go now to my listing. Oh, I need to go back to templates. Let's go to my old listing template and let's see if we forgot any forms. So we have the RLA, TDS, SPQ, Avid, cool, Trust Advisory, awesome, BCA. Let me see. Is it going to let me even open it? Let's see if it'll let me add it. If it wants me to add it, then we'll add this. Um, And if we do, we need to add it to both because the broker compensation advisory simply explains how the broker is compensated. And it's just part of the lawsuit. It's the result of the lawsuits. But let's go back to the old listing. So we'll check if we need to add the BCA, the MLSA. Yep, seller's advisory. We can add that one. Seller's purchase of replacement property. So this is a contingency that says I, the seller, have to find a replacement property in order to sell this one. So it's similar to the buyer's contingency. And if we go to, well, actually, I don't think it's a box that you would fill in, but you would just make sure that you include that to your seller, to your counters. So let's go back to, yeah, it's letting me know some of these forms are dead. Exempt seller disclosure, that's if it's a trust and they haven't lived in it or ever owned it. So let's fill in the seller's advisory and let's see if we can fill in the BCA. So let's go back to our templates. Sorry, I know I'm going fast, but I also know it's because we're on a time crunch and you can go back and watch this recording. So let's go to the residential listing. Happened to my forms. Did it not save it? Oh, there it goes. So we're going to go to seller's advisory, similar to the buyer's advisory, SA. Seller's advisory. We're going to add that one in. And then let's see if it still has the BCA that they wants us to use. Yep. So we're going to put broker compensation advisory. And so I know that that's going to be part of my initial signings. So when my seller signs the listing agreement, they're also going to need to sign the MLSA. They're also going to need to sign the seller's advisory, and they're going to need to sign the broker's compensation advisory, the BCA. So when I get my listing, when a seller says that or when a homeowner calls me and says they want me to come over, I'm just going to fill in the cover sheet. All of these forms will auto-populate, and then that is already done for me, which is awesome. So let me go back to the list. We're going to add broker's compensation advisory to the RPA. I totally forgot about that one. Boom. And that's going to be part of the signature stack. So I'm going to add that. Oh, sorry, I need to organize, move it up here. Done organizing. So let's kind of walk through this now. So I'm going to go to transactions and let's do a quick transaction. And I literally only have 3 minutes, but we're going to try it. So new purchase. And I'm going to 123 Banana Street. Let's see if it lets me do that. Residential. And now I'm going to say which template I want. Okay, so this is a purchase, an RPA. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say I want my residential purchase 325. And by the way, later I'm going to erase the 2024 because they're outdated. I'm going to click that and I'm going to hit save. And look at all the documents that are already waiting for me. I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to fill in the cover sheet. So this is a buyer. So we're going to put Bob Buyer. There you go. And then 1, 2, 3, 234 at google.com. All right. And then, oh, that's one thing we didn't talk about. So something that I want to make sure we do is notice how my information is already filled in here. So when we go back, so let's hit save. So now anywhere I go in the transaction, you're going to see, so I filled in buyer Bob. So I'm going to go to the BRBC. And you're going to see that magically, buyer Bob is already filled in. So is Keller Williams Pasadena. So is my wife. I'm going to go down here, buyer Bob, Keller Williams Pasadena. And then on the last page, Keller Williams Pasadena, Bob the buyer. So that's how templates work, which is really cool. So now something else that I want to talk about, just so it's on the recording, is when you are working on your templates. Let's go here. Let's go to residential purchase. For some reason, it takes a while to load. Residential purchase. There we go. So something that you can autofill on the cover sheet. So I'm working with the buyer on this side, right? So I'm going to go down to the buyer's broker. Who's the buyer broker on this, guys?
Keller Williams?
Exactly. Will that ever change on your
No.
transactions? No.
No.
So you can go ahead and put Keller Williams Pasadena. 01. Oh, it's already auto-filled. Boom. You could put your information, buyer's agent name. We're going to put Zara Malik. Okay. Zara, do you happen to know your license number by heart?
No, but it's 022 or something like that.
022.
I forgot.
Blah, there it is.
There
Oh,
you
you know what?
go.
It'll just let me autofill somebody else's. Okay. And then I'm going to put Zara's email, Zara at KW. Okay. And I'm going to put Keller Williams' address so I don't have to remember it anymore. 199 South Los Robles Avenue. I'm going to put Pasadena. I'm going to put California. I'm going to put the zip code. There's probably a bunch of them saved. Okay. I can even put the phone number. So you just need to do this one time. And then when you hit save, every single time you open up the cover sheet, this part will already be filled in for you. Okay. So let's go back. We're not going to save it. And I'm going to go to the other template. Let's go templates, forms and checklists. I want to go to the listing template now for the cover sheet. And I'm going to say, well, I won't know the buyer's broker until the transaction happens. I won't know the seller until the transaction happens, but I will know the seller's broker information because this is a listing and I'm with Keller Williams. So I would go back here, start filling in all this stuff again. Again, you just need to do it one time. It's kind of a pain in the butt, I'll be honest, but it's more of a pain to do it for every single transaction. So this part will already be done. We're going to Zara at kw.com, a seller's agent name, Zara Malik. 022, whoever's that is, we're going to use it. Okay. California. Zip code. Telephone number. I'm not even sure what our telephone. 203, I think. 203. I'll just make that up. And then agent's phone number. Zara, what's your phone number? I'm gonna use a random Wyoming area code. 307. What's your number?
617-4402.
Perfect. And I don't even know what a fax number is. Ignore that. Agent's number, cell phone. I'd just repeat Zara's number again. But now when I save this, every single time I open a transaction and I choose the template, the cover sheet will already be partially filled out with the information that never has to change. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah, that does. I just have one more quick question before you have to go.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so whenever, like for instance, my buyer, I had to do multiple RPAs for them. Does that mean I have to do a new cover sheet every time for them?
No, because the cover sheet, what you would do is, that's a great question. What you would do is you would fill in the cover sheet with their information, and then it'll auto-populate to the RPA. And then what you could then do is you can just start erasing. So like the first one would auto-populate, which would be really convenient. But moving forward, you can just use the same RPA. This is a listing, but you would just use the same RPA and just erase their name. So
Okay.
let's say, where is it? Oh, I didn't put any information for them. That's a bad example. But yeah, to answer your question, the first cover sheet you do would be for them. And then if like the address changes, you would just erase the address manually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, they keep us to 30 minutes because otherwise they actually kick me off of the Zoom. Last thing I'll show you is I'm going to go here. Because we updated these, I'm going to go here. I'm going to select these, and I'm going to delete them. So now there's no confusion. I have an RPA template and an RLA template. Depending on what my client's doing, whether they're selling or buying, I'm going to choose that template. I'm going to fill in the cover sheet. Part of that cover sheet should already be filled out because I fixed the template. And then if they want to see multiple properties or they want to write an offer on multiple properties, then you would just change the RPA manually with the different address, obviously with the different terms, but don't change the cover sheet because that, unless they're changing their name for every offer, that shouldn't necessarily change. Okay. Okay, guys. Well, thank you for jumping on. This recording will be available in the near future, I'm sure. Let me see.